Hi, welcome to Healing Humanity. My name is Dina, and I want to talk to you today about the journey of transformation. So, when you are on, whether you call it the beauty way path, the journey of transformation, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, it's a search for a new understanding of the world that you are living in, right? And it it comes at a price. It doesn't come easily. And why is that? Because on the other side of it, you are a completely changed person. But through that, you have to go through this transformation. And a lot of people stop when it starts to become negative, it starts to become really heavy, and you're judged. And somebody said to me, let me see if I have it here. Okay, this is exactly what I found. The path to growth goes through the valley of feedback. And I thought, wow, that's really exactly what I experienced. Because when you're on a path to transform your life or yourself, um, you have to take feedback, and you can't, you shouldn't own it to the point where it stops your progress. You know, I've said this before, you kind of take it in, you absorb it, and then you either have to vet it, you have to vet it, you have to know whether or not something that somebody is saying to you is true. And if it's true, what do you need to do to change it, accept it, um or either change it or accept it, or what do you need to do to understand it also, and why somebody's saying that to you and why they're bringing this to your attention, because you're going to get it from all different angles, all different people, all different ages. um, God uses everyone in your life to touch your heart, to touch your soul, to insist on that transformation within you. And he did in my life, but the only way to move forward is to really develop self-awareness, to understand who you are as a person, and know, not everything that you're taking in is something that is meant to change you. Sometimes what you're taking in and the feedback you're receiving is really you're being the mirror to someone else. And so they're interacting with you based on their own emotions, their own history, and their own feelings. And you have to vet that. You have to understand whether or not somebody, whatever somebody shares with you, you have to vet whether or not it's true or not. And I think that's the most important part of this whole thing, is to know yourself, have enough self-awareness to know whether or not the information that is being shared with you is true or not true. Because there's a lot of people out here that are very they want the accolades, they want the glory, but they don't want to do the work, right? And they're very negative. They want to trip you up. They want to stop your progress. They want to steal from you, steal, kill, and destroy, just like the Bible says. And it's true, they do. But you have to be able to take that one step further. You have to absorb what they're saying and then continue to move forward. You can't let them stop you. And I think that saying that the path to growth goes through the valley of feedback is so accurate for a transformation in your life. Because if you can't accept people's feedback, and be willing not only to accept it, but to change the things that are true, that need changing, you're not going to make it to the end. Because that's the whole goal. God is trying to change your heart. He's trying to change the way that you walk in the world. He's trying to change how you interact with people, and how you accept people. There's so many of us out here that are so judgmental, or look at somebody that may not have as much as you do, and or present themselves in a certain way, but then you find out they're a different way, and you get angry because they're presenting themselves somewhat differently. But the thing is when you're on a path to transformation, it's like that old saying, you have to dress for success. You have to act the way that you anticipate being. I mean, when I first started my career, as a young girl, uh, taking the aptitude tests and doing all the things that I was doing, I had to go through that transformation then, and I met some really wonky people that I would never have wanted to work for. But I also knew that through whatever job I had to give 110%, and I had to dress for the next stage of my life. I couldn't just be I couldn't just show up and think that everything was going to be fine from that day on. If I wanted something bigger, better, or more, I had to be that already. So when people are judging you, if you're showing up in a certain way, um, and they think that it's fake or false or negative about it, don't let them get you down, because at the end of the day, you're doing something that they have not even thought of trying to do. So their negativity, their um, harsh attitudes towards you is all about them. It has nothing truly to do with you. And I think that's the biggest transformation that most people can have, is to understand that how people interact with you is truly about what they learned through their history, through their teachings, through their family, um, and how they choose to show up in the world. It's not really about you, you know, and that's something that a lot of people have a hard time learning, because when they start to get judged and they start to um, go through a lot of these emotional moments due to how other people are interacting or judging them, it is harsh. It's hard on your heart. It's hard on your mind. You're confused. You're not really sure where this is all coming from. But if you sit back and you process it, you start to see the patterns, but you also start to see that they're coming to you from their own knowledge. It's just like your parents, right? When you're growing up, your parents raise you. I guess I told my kids, I was better than my parents were raising you guys, but I wasn't perfect. And I think your job is to raise your kids better than I was. So if we just keep getting better through all of these generations, we're going to get it right eventually. If somebody is. Um, and you have to look at your parents in a way that is forgiving, because they did the best they knew how to do at that time, and you can't hold that against them. At least that's what I found anyway. And I think also in dealing with the negativity, um, I would just say also that the ones that you find that are consistently negative in your life, get rid of them. You don't need those kind of people in your life. They are not going to, they're going to judge you, and they're going to make life really difficult, make you feel guilty, or want to make you feel guilty. And that's a choice on your part. You can choose to feel guilty, or you can choose not to. You can choose to be a victim, or you can choose not to. Um, and so when they're really coming at you hard, I would just remove those people from your life. You do not need them in your life. It's much better for you and much healthier for you to just remove them. It's not that you don't ever have, that you can't ever talk to them again. You can, on your terms, and I wouldn't say have these long drawn out conversations and spend a lot of time with them, because um, negativity begets negativity. If the longer that you're hanging around somebody like that, the more you're apt to be like that. So I would warn you to cut ties as much as possible, to put a barrier between you and not engage as much as you once probably did. I've had to do that, and it probably, there were times where it left me with nowhere to go, nowhere to turn to. But when I really looked at it through my transformation, I had to realize that, do I really want to engage in that negative banter or the negativity the negative thought processes, or did I want to try to do something different, something that was more in line with who I wanted to be as a person? Um, and I found that the latter was true, that I really wanted to make that transformation, and to show up in the world in a completely different way. God was insisting that I show up differently, and I was. Um, Also, I think it's important that when you hear certain judgments, not to not to stand and defend yourself, because that can just sometimes it can make you look more guilty or more troublesome or more emotional, if you will, to stand and try to defend yourself against a bunch of haters. And honestly, sometimes, and maybe not always, but most of the time, your silence is a great amount of power, and it controls things bigger and better than what you could if you started to fight back with your words. Um, Silence is not weakness, and I've said this before. It's really about empowering yourself and knowing who you are, and using your silence strategically to be able to control the the time and the sometimes the narratives that are being shared, because like I said before, your haters are very good at what they do, and they don't tend to stop for much of anything. But when you're silent, there's nothing for them to feed off of. So when you're online, or you're making phone calls, or you're trying to defend yourself, and you're out there fighting for your life, um, you're giving them more ammunition. Even though you are going up against them, if you're fighting them and you are posting things online, or you're trying to banter back and forth with them, on an emotional level, they are just eating that up, and they are going to just destroy you. Don't give them that power. Don't give them that information, because the more you share, the more they have to use against you. The less they know, the better you are. And that's how I've gotten through a lot of what I've gotten through. That was something that I learned very early on in my life. I was thinking about it, like, where did my self-awareness come from? Like, where did that start in my life? And I would have to say that I was probably about 12 years old, and it was a devastating event that happened in my life. My stepfather and I stopped speaking. He stopped speaking to me, and I couldn't tell you why that was. I can only make guesses. I still, to this day, don't have an exact reason. And you go through all of these you have this cognitive dissonance that happens within your mind, and you either break or you build through that cognitive dissonance. And one of the events that occurred, because he and I were not speaking, of no I will say of no fault of mine, only for the simple fact that I still to this day don't know exactly what happened. I can only guess of one particular event that may have caused him, but it was a complete overaction. I was 12 years old. His behavior was wrong. Um, Neither here nor there, But what happened because of that? There was an event, and there was quite a few more after this. But my mom said to all my siblings, "Get ready. We're gonna go out to eat." And when it came time, I had been ready, and I went to the back door, and my mom said, "No, you can't go." And I said, "What do you mean I can't go?" She said, "You can't go. Daddy's gonna be there. You're gonna stay here." And she left, and that was it. I was 12, and I was devastated. I lost it that night. I just could not stop crying. Um, and later on that evening, because I was so angry and so at a loss to what was happening in my life. I pushed the cat away, this little kitten that kept coming, and unfortunately it went under the chair, and it died in this like rocking chair. I heard it was awful. And that was my breaking point. Like I said, I was 12 years old, and that was my breaking point. That was that moment of cognitive dissonance where I either broke and gave up completely, or I fought back. And there were so many more nights because of that were like that, but it made me fight harder. It made me want to know myself more. So I dove in, all kinds of information, self-help groups, Tony Robbins, and I can't think of the other one, Bob Proctor, and a lot of Bob Proctor and Tony Robbins information that I just sort of absorbed over time. And I needed it because what was going on around me didn't make sense. It was ridiculous. And I had no control. I was a child. So I learned about haters at a very young age. I learned about liars at a very young age. I learned about letting people go that you don't want to let go. But you have to for your own mental health. You have to for your own stability, for your own mental well-being, and for your own bodily health. Like your body, mind, and soul depends on how well you take care of yourself. Not to count on other people to take care of you, but how you take care of yourself. So much more I'd love to say right now, but I'm sort of out of time, so I'm going to end it here. And until next time, my friends, keep healing.